Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to ARCHIDEX Fast Forward webinar series. My name is Lillian, and I will be your moderator for today. ARCHIDEX Fast Forward is a webinar series focused on the holistic perspective from the industry. Each session brings together collaboration from the industry with renowned architecture and building professionals, sharing their experiences from various perspectives, including industry, business, and education, to address current key issues and topics. Please note that this session is CPD applicable. To claim your CPD points, please follow the instructions in the comment section. Thank you for taking your time today to join us. We would not like you to do a quick and short survey through the link which is now in the comment section to let us know how you think of our ARCHIDEX Fast Forward webinar series after this webinar. Today's webinar, the speaker will be sharing on best practices for successful waterproofing. Waterproofing is an important and broad subject. Defective waterproofing not only affects a structure's serviceability, a leaking roof being the obvious example, but also its durability, with water penetration being a major contributor to concrete deterioration. This topic focuses on the best practices that must be observed in order to achieve the desired waterproofing security. They include the importance of surface preparation, attention to detailing, and control of site conditions. With that, let me introduce the speaker for today, Mr. Yong Wai Kit. Mr. Yong graduated from UTM with an honors degree in civil engineering. The earlier part of his career was spent with engineering consultant companies, followed by supplier of construction chemicals for specialist works in waterproofing, joint sealing, concrete repair, and protection. He heads the specification team in MAPE, works with design engineers, architects, and project owners in identifying best fit solutions in construction projects during the early stages of design. With that, I'll now like to invite Mr. Yong to join me on screen.
Right.
Good morning, Mr. Yong. How are you today?
Good morning, Lillian. Thanks, Lillian, for the introductions. Well, a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are staying safe and healthy at this unprecedented time. Before I start, I would like to play you a short intro video of MAPE. Right. Thanks for the intro video. Well, oftentimes we heard the house owners are complaining on the water leakages issues on their building. So for today's topics, let's take a look at the best practices for successful waterproofing. Right. From this diagram, I would like to show you that actually MAPE offer a comprehensive range of waterproofing system from the top of the building to the bottom of the building. And each of the areas has different selection criteria and selection solutions for it. So for today's topics, we are not going to zoom in on this. We will only zoom into the best practices. Yeah. So let's take a look at the number one criteria that we need to actually observe, which is actually the substrate gradient, which referring to the base slab or the screed shall be actually laid to fall. According to the good industry practice by BCA of Singapore, the roof that we constructed shall be actually casted in 1:80. Okay, so with these gradients, it should be actually sufficient for the water to flow to the nearest outlets. Well, if this is actually not so practical in Malaysia, at least we should actually observe minimum 1:120 in our context. Yeah. So what we can do is we can actually conduct a water ponding test prior to any waterproofing installations to ensure that there's no water depressions on areas and the substrate. So this is actually very important steps that we need to ensure on the first steps. The second step is actually to look into whether the substrate condition is in using a full adhered system. It means it's actually a fully bonded system. The substrate must be fully cured, sound, and also strong, right? It should be free of latent, dirt, dust, oil, grease, coatings, or any contaminants that actually may affect the adhesion. So I always use this analogy, which is actually, if you're going to stick a cellophane tapes onto a dusty table, will it stick? Right, the answer is no. So for this case, for any waterproofing that we are going to bond onto a substrate, it should be free of latents and dirt or any dust, right? So this is actually very important. And also, we must also ensure that the substrate must be free of cracks and also broken parts, right? It should be repaired with suitable non-strain repair materials. And the keyword here is allow it to cure properly before we apply the waterproofing on top. So this is actually very, very important. Subsequently, we also need to ensure all these waterproofing materials with very high mechanical properties, for example, our polyurethane per top system or a car park flooring system, which require very stringent surface preparation. So usually we need to follow the strict manufacturer recommendations. For instance, from the diagram below, you can see that for certain cases, we may even need to do a captive shot blastings, and also on the texture of the surface, we can actually see here to create a mechanical key for the waterproofing or also the flooring system to bond onto the substrate. So this is to ensure that the waterproofing is to apply to all this area and then fully bonded onto the substrate. And in certain cases, for high contaminant substrate, we should actually use a high pressure water jetting to clean it off all this contaminant that may actually it will actually affect the adherence on the waterproofing onto the substrate. And for the substrate preparation, right, for common surface defects and treatments, for all the holes and voids, well, clean out all these dust, the loose materials, and then reprofile them with our non-string material. For example, our Multi-Fill 318 or Multi-Grout Fill 218, yeah, on the dry pack mortar. Or for cracks or non-structural cracks, basically referring to, what we can do is we can actually cut a V-groove to a 25 mm deep and remove all these loose debris and reprofile them with our epoxy putty, for example, our 80 Select BG2 TG. For all these honeycomb patches, what we can do is hack back to the source concrete and then reprofile them with non-string or dry pack mortar, right? So all these repair materials, there has to be properly cured before the waterproofing installation. So this is actually very important steps that we need to actually take into consideration. Well, for sharp protrusions and also the concrete droppings, what we can do is we grind down to the surface profile and remove all the dust and debris. Right? For sharp external corners, grind off to the smooth radius. For dirt, oil, grease, and latents, what we can do is, before the pictures that we showed earlier, we can actually remove it with high pressure water jet. Right. For instance, for a bathroom and toilet with the concrete or brick wall installations, right, the substrate. So what we need to actually pay attention is that to pre-wet all these substrate, especially the plaster wall, and then we hose down to achieve a saturated surface dry condition. Okay, what is actually a saturated surface dry condition, or we call it the SSD condition? That means the surface actually feel damp, but no free water or no standing water on top. So in that means when after we apply the cementitious waterproofing onto it, it will not suck away by the substrate. Yeah, and then it will not interfere the adherence of the waterproofing onto the substrate. Next, on the treatment of the internal corners, we have options one. Well, install the 25 by 25 mm cement mortar anchor fillets. Okay, what we can do is we can actually mix with latex onto a 1:3 cement sand mortar, and then to form these anchor fillets. Well, the reason why we do anchor fillet is that we want to have a smooth radius of the waterproofing on the upturns area, so that these areas will not be the waterproofing will not set here if you have a sharp corners. Yeah. So, and what we can do optionals is that we can actually use our non-stream mortar, like our Multi-Grout Patch 218, to actually fill up this joint here, right? So this is actually how it actually looks like, the angle fillet. So it can be formed by using our maybe crowd patch 218, okay, to form these 25 by 25 triangular angle fillets. Options 2, you can actually use our range of MAPE band. So as you can see from the video, MAPE innovations, we had actually invented into MAPE band in replacements of the angle fillet. So by doing MAPE band, you do not need to use the angle fillet in this case. So the MAPE band with very stretchable materials, after you apply this onto the angle fillets, you will actually watertight the joints, the sharp corners right away. Right. Well, we have a few range of MAPE band, which is MAPE band Easy, or MAPE band SA. So it's actually used on different scenarios. So this is how it looks like. You can actually use it, MAPE band Easy, or we can actually use MAPE band SA with a style adhesive. Yeah. Right. For best practices for these substrate conditions or ambient conditions, always refer to the manufacturer's instructions. Right. For instance, if the substrate has to be very damp and very high moisture content and exceeded the permitted level, it will cause the delamination or blistering, like what you can see from the picture beside here. Right. So what we can do is we can use a primer to solve this issue, or always check the substrate condition, the moisture content inside the substrate. Okay, so if let's say the weather conditions is, let's say it's going to rain, so we don't apply the waterproofing. So observe this, right? And in oftentimes we see that we actually recommend a lot of primers, primer SN or primer MT or things like that. So what is actually the functions of this primer? So it actually used to consolidate the substrate and also to improve the adhesions of the waterproofing adherence to the waterproofing to the substrate, I mean. Always follow the manufacturer's recommendation materials and also the application method, and also make sure all these areas are to be covered. And then also observe the window periods for the applications of this waterproofing material, right? So for instance, the waterproofing membrane that is applied, what we recommended in our data sheets, say 12 to 24 hours after applying the primer. So if this is actually surpassing the 24 hours, we need to reapply it again, right? So it's already surpassed the observe the window periods. Right, for roll form membrane, like our torsion membrane or TPO membrane or PVC membrane that we are using. So we need to pay attention to all these detailing, especially the lapping. So the lappings will have to ensure that there's no water actually seep through the lappings, right? So all the corners and all the pipe penetrations has to be taken care of, right, in order to ensure that the water tightness of waterproofing membrane. Not only that, the pipe penetrations that we need to pay attention in MAPE, we do have things called drain vertical, right, to ensure the water tightness of the floor trap here. Later, I'll show you the full details of this, right? And for some WC areas, we can actually treat it with sealants around the circumference of the floor traps area or the WC area. Right. In this case, this is the simple detailings that we need to actually observe, especially after this is actually for toilets, especially the waterproofing on the cementitious. This is the cementitious waterproofing, right? Our Planisil 3AA or Planisil 2A or even our MAPE elastics, right? After that, we need to apply the Plasimo POW, which is actually a liquid apply waterproofing coating, right? Over it, okay? Downturn to 50 mm and around the circumference about 75 to 100 mm on the circumference of the floor traps, right? So this is to ensure that these areas has been taken care of for the water tightness on the floor trap. So actual conditions is, you can see this has to be done like in this way, yeah. Right, like I said earlier, MAPE has a range called drain vertical. So we have this drain vertical or even the drain lateral. In the whole sets, we have anti-auto plugs and also the pipe sleeve that you can actually cut into the level that you want to suit the screening level that you need to. And in the box, it comes together with the stainless steel grating, okay, to take care of the floor traps area. Okay, so this is actually one whole sets that actually available to be sold to the industry, right? Right. We also need to pay attention to all this detailing, especially where we need to apply the tuck-in on the upturns, yeah, to seal it off with sealants, where we need to do certain lappings or things like that. Even for the TPO or PVC membrane that we are using, flashings need to be taken care of. All these detailings actually are available to be shared with the consultants and architects in the industry. So always check with us. We can actually share with you all these standard detailings that we have for each of the products that we have. So basically, each of the products has different detailings that we need to observe. And also, we need to respect and clip all the joints. For example, for this case, this is actually a structural expansion joint. What we can do is that we install a multi-band TP. Basically, is tape that we add to ensure the water tightness of the expansion joint. Okay, so we can use this. Right. A lot of times we heard of the owners are complaining and architects are complaining on the if this is actually a phenomenon called efflorescence on the substrate, especially the tile surface. So this is actually, for instance, this is a waterproofing layer, and this is a screed layer. And what happen is that if you waterproof the layers on the substrate directly, and then you screed it over, and then you tiles it over on top, what happens is that the rainwater still can able to actually reach down to the substrate. In this case, this is actually the screed, and it will react with the screed to form this efflorescence on top of the surface, and it will actually look very ugly. So how do we actually prevent this? Is that we apply the waterproofing layers directly onto the screed. We can actually also do it one layer on the substrate to ensure that these waterproofing layers serve as protections to the water to in contact with the this is actually the screed to form the efflorescence. So this is actually very important steps, and then directly we can use our tiles adhesive to tiles it over onto that, and then this will ensure that the efflorescence phenomenon wouldn't happen, right? So last but not least, we should actually appoint an experienced and also the competent applicators. Always check with us on the project references, because this is actually very important. We always believe that if you have a world-class products in the world, but you have a lousy applicators, you will never get a successful waterproofing system, right? So, and always check who are their project teams and whether they have done any relevant jobs on these certain products that we have, actually very special products, especially like the spray-on polyurea system that we have in our range. And also check whether they have special equipment and tools to apply the waterproofing system. Right. For instance, this one is a pure polyurea system, right? So they need to use a very special equipment and tools to spray on machine, to spray the waterproofing membrane. And also check the financial strength of the applicators. Make sure that they are not $1 or $2 company, right? They are here to stay and to serve, because they will carry the liabilities of 10 years on the workmanships. Yeah. And this is actually very important as well, to review all these method statements and also the QC checklist that they are submitted to you, just to make sure that they are following according to what we have already specified, and according to the works sequence and steps we spelled out in the data sheets. So this is actually very, very important. Right. For care and protections of the works and maintenance, what we need to do is, like we mentioned earlier, protect the weather and also the traffic during the curing period. Like I would like to bring you for an examples of outdoor swimming pools that we apply. Rightfully, for all these outdoor installations, even for we should actually erect a tentage during the installations of the waterproofing, and also the installations of the tiles with tiles adhesive, of course, and to ensure that this the water will not interfere with the bondings of our adhesive and even the waterproofing system that we applying for. And most importantly, respect the curing periods of these waterproofings, and not to fill up the water very fast, and to ensure that it will not it works actually. And the second point is to use proper footwear to ensure that it will not damage the waterproofing that we have already applied. And then do not place heavy objects directly onto the waterproofing surface. And you can actually use a plywood, especially you have a scaffolding that you need to actually place it onto the waterproofing system, right? Practice regular inspections and maintenance. So this is actually very important. Like this is very important in this case is that we need to work together with site personnel, and all parties have to come into place to ensure that a successful waterproofing system in this case. Right, protections of the ply coatings and membranes. So especially when you have a waterproofing that is applied on the bitumen onto the RC retaining wall, before you backfill it, we need to actually apply a polystyrene board or even a drainage cell to protect the waterproofing before backfilling. So for example, this projects that we have done, this is actually KVMRT Bukit Bintang station. So after spraying of the membrane, basically this slab is actually the roof of the KVMRT station that we have. So after spraying of the membrane, we have actually need to put in the polystyrene board before the backfilling, right, to protect the membrane directly, right? Right, that's all for me today. Back to you, Lilian.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yong. That was an insightful sharing from your end. Now let's move on to the most exciting part of the session, which is the Q&A session.
Sure.
Okay. We've received a couple of questions from the audience. Perhaps I can read the first one to you first. Which method or which one method is better to treat corners, the mortar patch or the band? Any pros and cons, and is there a big price difference?
Yeah, okay. So I'll answer the first part. So which is actually better to treat the corners? Basically, we will think Marpet band is a better options to treat the corners, because the Marpet band will actually treat the watertight the corners right away after you are applying on the corners, right? So basically, compared to the patching mortar or even the cement sand mortar that you use, you need to wait for it to cure. Okay, so this is actually the cons of the material that you need to use. So in terms of the costing, of course, Marpet band will be slightly more expensive in this case, but I would think in the long run, Marpet band will work far more effective than the patching mortar or even the cement sand grout, because even in the industry we are using a lot of times they are using cement sand to form the angle fillets. Right, cement sand doesn't have the non-string properties, so it will actually crack. So when it cracks, it's actually give way for the waterproofing apply on top of it. So this is actually one of the shortfalls for using the mortar, right?
Okay. So is the band also more durable in that sense?
Yes, you can actually stretch it. It can actually be not easily punctured. Of course, if you poke it, it will be easily punctured. But it is actually very high elongation, very stretchable, very flexible. Yeah. So that if there is any, especially you have a different substrate like a plaster brick wall or even a concrete slabs. So this is two different substrates. So there will be we foresee there will be slightly movement over this area, and the Marpet band will be able to actually cater for this movement as well.
Wow, okay, interesting.
Right.
Now let's
Yeah.
move on to the next question. Are there different kind of priming materials for different substrate? Can you give a couple of examples?
Well, they are definitely different substrate and different priming. As for example, for in this case, let's say we are applying a cementitious waterproofing onto a dry wall condition. That is actually getting very common nowadays. So we need to use acrylic primer in this case to apply onto the substrate before we apply the waterproofing. And there are certain priming that we need to apply wet on wet. Okay. Or we do not need to wait for it to cure. So immediately after the priming, we need to apply the cementitious strike away. Do not wait for it to cure. In certain cases, like for our polyurethane system, the per top system that we have, we are using a primer SN in this case. Yeah. So the primer SN basically is an epoxy primer that we apply to enhance the the adhesions, and also to consolidate the substrate. So that to receive this polyurea system before we applying over it, right? So this is actually
Okay.
basically two very. We have actually more in our range of all this primer. Yeah, you can always check with us because basically each of the products that we need to apply need to be applied. We will actually recommend the primer that we need to use. Right.
Okay. So you will do the mix and matching for
Definitely.
for the client. Okay.
And
That's
yeah,
great. Well, we have a couple of more questions coming in, so let's
sure.
address them quickly. From FB as well, does MAPE give technical support in between to ensure the job is done properly by workers?
Yeah, very
Yeah,
good
I think
question.
the after
Yeah.
sales support is very important, right?
Yes, we have a team called technical service team to actually serve the project sites. Yeah. So if
Mm,
there is any before basically what this technical service team does is it will actually before the site commencement, the site actual work condition, they will do the briefing, the introductions to the workers. This is actually very important to teach them what to take care, what are the detailings that we need to pay attention, and what not to do. Okay, the correct tools to use to apply the waterproofing. Okay, so this is actually before. And
mm,
during the installations of the waterproofing, we will do a periodic check. Okay, basically from time to time. Okay, especially on the beginnings of the projects, so that we want to ensure that they do it in the right in the first place. So this is actually, and then after the installations or all the work waterproofing and during the defect liability period, technical service team will also serve as to check on if there's any leakages happening
mm.
or if there's any defect. They will be the one to actually going down to the site to check all these issues. So basically, this is how they actually work.
Wow,
Right.
awesome. So you have a team of people who's taking care of this. I hope that answers your question, Pui Pui. Now,
Yeah.
moving on. Question from also from Facebook. It says here, thank you for your enlightenment, truly enlightening. Condo during DLP. What is the best way to repair topmost roof repair? Thank you.
Okay. For roof, okay, it depends on the existing waterproofing system that you are using. Basically, if let's say it is still under the defect liability period, I would suggest go back because it's actually still under the warranties. Okay, of the I mean, be whoever who is actually doing this, always check back the previous supplier or us that is actually doing this. Or else, if let's say the third party were to actually come in to repair, it will actually jeopardize the warranty. So if let's say it's very serious and the owners say no, we need to they cannot repair already. We need to make some changes on repairs on the roof. Well, on the roof, if let's say it's an exposed system, we can use back the exposed system. We have plenty of exposed system like pure polyurea system like a per top or even our Aquaflex roof system that is actually what can be applied onto the existing area, or we can actually use torch-on membrane. So there are a lot of options that we need to actually go to the site and to check on the
Recti
site
first,
condition first.
yes.
Yes,
Mm.
before we recommend anything, especially on the existing roof condition. Yeah,
Mm.
so we
So,
cannot
so your
simply just
team
recommend like this.
understand.
Yeah,
So your team will go and recce the place first, and then decide on what is the better solution, and then propose it to the client. So that's the earlier part, I would say, before the actual thing takes place, right?
correct. We need to do a diagnosis on the actual site conditions, and then only we recommend what is actually the best solutions for it. So sometimes the most expensive solutions may not be the best solution. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, sometimes
Mhm.
it could be just a very small leak, or it could be a very
Yeah.
small thing, and all you need to do is just patch that up. Okay.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
moving on. The next question from Facebook as well. Before apply WP, applicator or contractor to make sure the substrate gradient fall is correct to receive WP. Wow, it's a lot of jargons. I'm not sure if I
Uh,
understand it, but I'm sure
WP
you
is
do.
actually referring to waterproofing in this case, the short form
Ah,
for
right,
waterproofing.
right. Okay.
Okay, so basically, yes, the contractors, basically all parties need to ensure that the substrate condition, the gradients has need to be 4 with a certain gradient, like what I highlighted in my presentation earlier,
Mm,
is minimum 120. Okay, that's what we recommended, and then um, and has to be spelled out in the actual specifications or even before tendering, so that the contractors have to price in for this. Because
Right.
sometimes if this is not priced in, it will become a VO. Okay, it can be done either with screed to fall or even the concrete cast to fall. So if let's say the contractor say it's very hard to do a concrete cast to fall, then use the screed to cast to fall to form the gradients. Yeah. So this is to ensure the full successful of the waterproofing system. Right.
Right. Okay. Cool. Okay, we are running short of time, so we'll take two more questions from
Sure.
the Facebook as well. This is a question which is very good. Who to contact MAPE technical service team to assist on site installation? Should they contact you?
Yeah, they can actually contact us on our. You can actually check out on our website, mape.com.my, call us, or you can actually see from the screen now. You can actually check on the contact numbers that we have, right? To call
Yes.
us
Or
for
email
any.
you directly.
Correct. Yes, we can actually always welcome to actually service that.
Okay.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
super awesome. Okay, one last question.
Sure.
Um, Waterproofing giving 10 years warranty period, by DLP only 2 years. If leakages have happened after DLP, how? So
Oh, okay.
direct.
So basically, after the defect liability periods, it's actually still under the warranty, right? You should actually contact the maintenance office, and then I believe the maintenance office should be able to actually contact with the contractors, the previous contractors, or they will, or the contractors will actually call the owners. Owners will definitely liaise with the consultants. In this case, consultant will call the suppliers like us, right,
I
to come
see.
back to rectify, or we will work together with our applicators, in this case, whoever has done the job actually at the job
Mm.
site. Right.
So
Right.
having said that, go to MAPE, guys. Whatever that you, whenever you need a waterproofing, you know who to go to and what to go to.
Yes.
There's a follow up question from that technical team thing. Gradient have to be 1.1 over 8 sufficient, or 1/18, 1/120 submission.
Okay. Uh, the lower the number is actually the what do you call that? This, I mean, 1:80 is actually much better than 120. Basically, it's actually
Right.
very steep, right? 120 is even more gentle than what 100 1:200 is actually too gentle in this case for the gradients for to fall. So what
Okay.
we take a middle of 120 in this case, 1:120, right?
Okay, so it's a little technical. Okay, guys, it's getting a little technical. So if you need to find out more, you need more information, please don't hesitate to contact Mr. Young. Thank you so much, Mr. Young, for today's session. But I guess this is all the time that we have. We've actually overrun a little bit, but it's
Sure.
okay. It was interesting learning about waterproofing from you, and you've provided a lot of professional advice and also professional knowledge to us. Thank you so much. All right,
You're most welcome.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time as well today. We would now like to do a quick and short survey through the link, which is now in the comment section. So you can click on it and let us know what you think of our ARCHIDEX Fast Forward webinar series. Now, thank you so much, Mr. Yong, and thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. That will be all for today. See you soon. Stay safe and bye bye.